What's up guys, my name is Ace, and the Black Ops 4 beta is almost here for you Xbox and PC users, as well as we get the second week for PS4 users. I played it a ton last weekend, like I said in a previous video, about 50 hours over the course of the beta weekend. And today I wanted to share my top 5 tips to give you guys a leg up when you first get into the beta based on my experience with the game so far. So hopping right into it, first up, this is one of the most important tips with this game: buddy up. With this game, the time to kill is a little bit slower than previous Call of Duty games. It generally takes an extra 1 to 2 bullets to kill than you'd be used to in something like Black Ops 3, for instance. And as a result, it's much more beneficial to challenge somebody with another person on your team. The lone wolf playstyle in this game is a lot more difficult to achieve, especially if you yourself run into multiple enemies, and therefore I found in most situations it's best to stay near your teammates rather than try and be that lone wolf that stays away from the teammates and tries to get on the flank and shoot enemies that way. One thing I really like about this is in Black Ops 4, assists will count as a kill. They have the EKIA system instead of just the kill system, so even if you just put one bullet into an enemy player and your teammate finishes off the kill, you will still get credit for that kill and you'll get the same amount of score towards your streak as well. So there's really no downside to buddying up in this game. You don't have to worry about teammates stealing your kills for you like you might have to worry about in previous Call of Duty games, so always make sure that you're trying to buddy up with people. Next up, I have a few minimap tips for you guys. I'm going to combine them all into this one tip here. First up, since it is the beta and people are just starting off at level 1, at least on Xbox and PC, even on PS4, a lot of people are going to be using the UAV. As a result, Ghost is your friend. Ghost is going to be one of the more powerful perks for you within the beta build of the game. It's really valuable to stay off that radar when people are spamming those UAVs out, so definitely make sure you're doing that. Another tip with a minimap is something that's relatively subtle. You can find out if an enemy player is on the same level as you, or if they're above you or below you by using just the minimap. In previous games, the enemy dot would either have a line below or a line above the dot when they show up on the minimap, but that's not how it works in this game. In this game, what happens if an enemy is not on your level is they'll have a slightly darker red dot on the minimap, whereas if they are on your level, it's going to be a bright red dot. So there's definitely a difference there, and that's how you can tell if somebody's like up in a window or something, for instance, or right next to you ready to challenge you. Now the final little tip that fits into this minimap category is Team Link is a relatively powerful perk as well. What Team Link does is it increases the fog of war radius around you as well as your teammates, which definitely helps you find enemies a lot more effectively and gives you an early heads up on when they're approaching you or your teammates. This is going to be extremely valuable, especially in the early stages of the game when you're trying to figure out the maps. Next up, getting away from the minimap and getting into my third main tip I'm going to be giving you guys here. This is mantle on everything, or at least try. It's really surprising in this game. There's a lot of areas where it looks like there's no way you'd be able to mantle that high. Run up to it and try it. You'll be very surprised at how many things you can mantle on. Even the window in the church on Seaside, you can mantle up onto a block and then mantle up into the window. Basically, every window in this game you can mantle into, no matter how much it looks like you can't make it into it. This is something that's definitely going to open up a lot more options and opportunities for you in-game if you know that you can actually mantle into any one of those windows. Moving on to number 4, this one is relatively basic, but it's something that is different than any previous Call of Duty game. In this game, when you're aiming down sight, flinch is pretty much non-existent. In addition to this, with the way that they've changed up the health mechanics and everything, many of the guns will kill in fewer shots by getting headshots even without the high caliber attachment equipped. As a result, especially with a gun like the ICR has that perfect damage profile where even without high caliber, which you can't even put on it, it will take one fewer shot to kill if you just hit one bullet in the head. As a result, if you can manage it, always try to be aiming for the head with most of the weapons in this game. One added benefit to this as well is it's an excellent counter to people that are using body armor. If you're already naturally aiming for the head, when you run into somebody with body armor, it won't really matter much if you're hitting your shots in this head. So finally, this brings us to the last tip that I have for you guys. This one's a little bit more on the general side, but it has to do with your specialists. This is use your specialists wisely, and also, especially in objective game modes, be prepared to switch your specialists to fill a gap that your team is missing. I've noticed a lot of times when I'm playing the game, the enemy team maybe has somebody using a spawn beacon really effectively, which pushes their spawn closer to the objective, and if nobody on my team is running Seraph and using a spawn beacon to counter that, it can be a very challenging fight, and they will almost definitely win that game because they'll be holding that map control a lot more effectively. So if you notice that something like the spawn beacon is missing, it might be time to switch over to Seraph. Another example of this is Recon. Recon is one of those specialists where in every objective game mode at least, I feel every team needs one person running Recon. The simple reason behind this is that sensor dart that he has that you can shoot towards an objective or at a really common choke point near an objective. That is an extremely powerful piece of gear that works for the entire team, and it absolutely has the potential to sway the tides on a game. So if you notice, especially in objective game modes, you're falling behind a little bit, you're starting to lose control, or you just don't have control and you want to gain that control, take a step back, have a look at what your team is using as far as specialists go, and if there's an available one that you feel would better help the team out, then I would say definitely switch to that specialist. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for the top 5 tips that I have for you guys going into the second weekend of the beta for PS4 or your very first weekend for Xbox and PC. Of course, I'd like to know in the comments section below, for those of you guys that played over the last weekend on PS4, what other tips would you provide for people that are just getting into this game for the first time? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.
Yeah.